Hello and welcome to Workshop Wednesdays!
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello Gemini, welcome to first time text chat message. Hi, let's see who we have here. Conduit, Seeker, Skywin,
Oh, Conduit.
Ramper,
Kiovo.
Hunter, Dragon Chibi.
Lots of folks.
Lots of
Yes,
folks.
indeed.
How is everyone, by the way? How are you all doing today?
Hope you guys are doing good.
Hey, Nicarita, thanks for the
Ooh.
tier 1. That's really appreciated. Thank you. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna wear that avatar now. I'm gonna wear that avatar now. There we go.
Hey.
Yeah. There we go. Because Nicarita subdial, well, Nicarita's avatar for this stream. How's that?
Very nice. I like it.
Yeah, I'm good. Yesterday was a bit boring, but, you know. Not gonna complain.
Oh, I'm doing pretty good too.
And yeah, we've got this Fruit's head here today.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Wait, it talks.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
It just says
Hello.
It just says hello. Does it say anything else?
Fruit.
What?
Fruit.
Fruit?
It says
Fruit.
But yeah, we have a Fruit's head.
Hello.
It says hello and fruit. Good.
It says hello and fruit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolute Fruits moment.
on the agenda today, we are taming this really horrible, nasty beast called
UIX.
UIX.
As I hate UIX, but you know it creates awesome stuff like this, and this, and this. Oh wait, no, that creates UIX as a difference.
Yes.
But yeah,
I think you'll realize it's not as much of a demon as you might think.
But yeah, today you're going to be in mostly Ryuvi's helpful hands. So Ryuvi will be probably doing most of this one.
With Aegis.
With Aegis' help. And this is going to be this is part 1 of I don't know. Probably two parts, maybe 3.
Somewhere around there. I haven't thought that far ahead.
I do believe today you're going over just the basics.
Yes, we're going to be going over the basic construction of a panel, what UIX is, what are the various components of it, where you can find it, how you make it, and we're going to make something for this world to demonstrate.
No, don't, Envy, don't donate to the stream now. I know that the donations from the stream, at least from the subs and stuff, do go towards Azure. As far as I know. So. But, yeah.
Alrighty.
Anyway, I'm going to let this lovely Luboyo and Aegis
Egg
go deal with the this UIX stuff.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
actually,
So
before you go anywhere, I'm just cleaning up. It's a bit dirty around here. It's a bit
Good idea. Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Right. Okay. So you may.
Alrighty. Let's head on out. Woo. So, UIX, let's start with what it is. UIX is a system which allows you to create UI elements, panels, anything that deals with UI or has interaction, buttons, sliders, things that can display images, anything. An example of UIX would be your dashboard, or anything that uses that has a UI, like the Twitch chat, the questions board we have there is UIX, this camera interface is UIX. Lots of things use UIX, and it's a system developed by Uix, and quite frankly, I love it. But I also love UIX, so I might be slightly biased. Where you can find UIX, or where you can create it. Oh yeah, good. Aegis is pulling up more examples. Thank you, Aegis. We're going to need a dev tip for this, so I'm going to get myself one. Here we have our dev tip, which you can find, for those who might not know, in Essential Tools. And You can create a UIX panel in two ways. Both are available in the Create New menu with your dev tip. The first option that provides you with a basic start is under Objects, Uix Canvas. And this spawns you a really big and nicely laid out Uix canvas that you can work with or modify to your heart's content. We've got buttons, sliding pieces of text, fields to edit text. We've got sliders and all sorts of things, which we will cover all of these later down the line. Today's stream, though, will be just about the basics. I'm very excited to get to the slider, though, but that will be next time. Now, the other way to make a Uix canvas is from scratch, which is where we will be doing that. And you can do that with Create New, and we will create an empty object. Now, under this empty object, where you can find the components for Uix are all located under the Uix category under Attached Component, conveniently. If we go into Uix, we've got a babbling Frooks. We go into Uix, the main component that Uix uses is the canvas. I create one of these. Well, there's nothing there because we're not drawing anything. Now, one thing to note about canvases before we go any further is they're huge. You can't see the gizmo right now, but I'm going to set the scale of this thing to much smaller. There. Now we can see we have our blank, literally blank canvas. And the reason it's so big is because the canvas size, which is currently set to 1920 by 1080, that is in meters, so it's over 1 kilometer in size in both directions when you spawn it, so it's good to scale it down. Speaking of size, your canvas has a resolution here. Well, sort of a resolution. If I change this to, say, 1080 by 1080, it's square. And this judges the size of the items that you place on the canvas. But let's return this to 1920 by 1080 because I think that is a good size for our canvas. Now, another thing, when you create the canvas component, it adds a couple of other components with it, a rect transform and a box collider. The box collider exists so you can actually interact with it, but the rect transform is something special and specific to Uix. The rect transform is a required component for Uix items, and it allows you to change how it's displayed and where it's displayed. It has 5 options here. The bottom one doesn't yet have a use, so we won't be covering that. However, we will cover this in more detail later, but for now, just know that it exists, and it is used to position things relative to whatever it's attached to. Now, moving on, we have a blank canvas, but we want to display something. Well, let's get us a background going. So I'm going to click the star here to add a new child. And I'm going to call it background. Do note that I'm only naming these slots for convenience, so I know what it is. The actual slot name for Uix items doesn't matter. And I'm going to attach here a Uix graphics image. And here we have a blank image. The image component has a few options to it, including tint, a sprite, a material. Let's make this a little bit darker. Now, one thing about this is you'll see it looks a little weird. You can see things through it. That's not right. We don't want that. If you make a Uix canvas and it looks weird like this, that's because you need a special UI material for it to render properly. And we can add this material to this slot by going to Assets, Materials, UI Unlit Material. And here it is. I'm going to add it to the Material slot here under the image, but nothing changes. It's because we have to change a couple of settings on the UI Unlit Material for it to render properly. The most important one being Z-Write. If we set that to on, it's fixed.
I can't see.
Well, of course you can. And another thing that tends to help with desktop rendering is if we set the offset factor to something around 5 and the offset units to 100. These can be any numbers you like, but these are the defaults used, I think, even on Logix nodes as well. I'd have to check. However, it renders properly now. Stuff doesn't render behind it. We have a canvas that we can work with. Now, once we have a background, what we want on this panel in specific is, let's add a... let me take a step back. So, on this panel, we want things to be vertically aligned. We want a vertical list of items. And conveniently, Uix has things just like that, actually, things that can do this for us. And while I'm on this topic, before I add this, I will go over the various things that Uix has. If I can type vertical... I cannot type today. Vertical layout. So, Uix has a few various elements to it. We've got the canvas, we have graphics, we have interaction elements, layouts, and various utility features as well, all of which are very important. And what we're interested in specific is layout, and we want a vertical layout, which, as the name suggests, allows you to lay out things vertically. You notice, by the way, whenever you add a Uix component, it automatically gives it a rect transform if it doesn't have one. That's because these are required for each of the slots underneath a Uix canvas, otherwise it doesn't know how to place the item and can't render. And we can talk a bit more about that later, because there are some... you might run into an issue with rect transform if you add a slot that doesn't have one. However, for our vertical layout, if it's not laying out anything, we can't see it, but I don't want the items that we're laying out to go all the way to the edge, and that's why we have padding options here in the vertical layout, which will kind of inset it a little bit. I'm going to add padding, 10 pixels worth of padding for all of these, including some spacing, which gives 10 pixels of spacing between the items, otherwise they're directly on top of one another. Now, we're not going to bother with a horizontal line and vertical line for these other elements here. However, what these do is these change the alignment of the items that this component is aligning, be it they're aligned center, left, the right, top, bottom, etc. And force, expand, width, and height, well, we'll talk about that later. One thing to note, by the way, when you're making Uix elements is the hierarchy is important. If you want something to render on top of something else, it has to be down the hierarchy. So your render order is from top to bottom. But that's not much of a concern here. Next, let's give ourselves a title. So I'll add another I'll add another child, and I will call this title text. And I will attach a Uix graphics text. And I will call it World Control Panel, which reveals what this panel is going to be for. Now, when I add this text, the default configuration is it's black, and it's on the left and on the top. That's a little bit hard to read, and that's not quite where I want it. So I'm going to set it to white, and I'm going to set the horizontal line to center, and the vertical line to middle. And what that does, that aligns it right in the middle of our canvas, which is great. Now, for the sake of dealing with font size and such and auto-scale things, for most text pieces, unless you want this text to be a specific size, one thing that I recommend doing is checking these here, the horizontal and vertical auto size. There are some cases where you don't want these checked, but for our case, we do want these checked. These basically just limit the text to render within the bounds and not, spill out of the bounds of the box that it's currently contained within, and etc. Great. We have a title. And underneath our vertical layout, I'm going to add another child, and I'm going to call it content. And this content, I'm going to add a rect transform directly. And the reason we're going to do this is because I don't want content to have any kind of visibility. It's just a container. So, I'm going to go Uix rect transform. And now this item just has a rect transform and nothing else. You'll also notice that the text has moved up. That's because the text now is contained in the top half of the panel, and this empty thing is on the bottom, because it's being vertically aligned. So, what we want is, I want this text to be at the top, and I want our content to fit the rest of the panel beneath it, so that we have a header, and then we have our vertical layout of things that we want to do, in this case, for our control panel. So for this, I'm going to add a layout component, which allows you to adjust the sizings of things in vertical or horizontal or grid layouts. So we will go to Uix Layout, and we will add a layout element. What this does is it allows you to choose the minimum, preferred, and flexible widths and heights of a specific object. Minimum width will say if the thing that I'm contained in is less than a certain amount, then the item that we're setting the minimum width to will not get any smaller than what you've set, even if it overflows outside of the panel. Same with height, and preferred width is the width that it wants to be. If it can't meet the preferred width, then it will be limited to the minimum width. However, what we're interested in is flexible height, because we want this to adjust, it's a flexible area that's being controlled by this layout. If we set this to 1, you'll notice now it expands to take up the space beneath the text, and the text is at the top of the panel, which is exactly what we want in this case. Now that we have this, I'm going to add, underneath our content, another vertical layout, and you'll see why. Let's see, vertical layout. And we're going to attach one from Uix Layout, vertical layout. And we have another one, but of course it's not rendering anything. You don't see it. And the reason we want this vertical layout is because each of the items underneath here we want to be stacked one on top of another. If we didn't have that, they would just all be on top of each other, if that makes sense. So I'm going to give this, just like before, a bit of a padding and some spacing. We're going to keep everything else the same, although we are going to set vertical align to top, because what this does is any of the items that are underneath it, they're going to be up at the top. I do have a question here. Do Uix buttons have native haptic triggers? I believe what you mean by that is when you hover over it and such, you'll feel haptics, and yes. But we will get to buttons in just a moment, actually. So under our vertical layout, gonna add another button. Or, another button. I blew it. We're going to add a button. So our first piece of interaction on this, because right now, it doesn't do anything. So we have a button. I'm going to attach. First, we want the button to have some kind of visual. And for that, we're going to want an image. Ah, it's white. That's bright. Let's turn it down. Let's have a gray button. There we go. But that is a very big button. We don't want it to be quite that large. So, we can go back to the vertical layout, and to fix this so that it only takes up a width that we define, we can uncheck Force Expand Height, and you'll notice it disappears. That's because with the button that we just made here, we haven't defined a height. If you want to define a specific height for an item, we can use a layout element, just like we did with the vertical layout. With this, we want to set a preferred height, which this is the width or height that the item wants to be if it can reach it. Let's set a preferred height of 96 pixels. And there it is. You see that button now only takes up that little area. Even though there's more space beneath it, its preferred height is only that much, and it will only be that much even if there's more space available. Thanks to the preferred height here on the layout element. Now this is not quite yet a button. If you want something to be a button, you can go under Uix, Interaction, and give it a button. Now it's a button, and if I hover over it, it changes color, I can click it, it does things. Well, not yet, but it can do things. Although it turns a little bit dark when I press it, so I'm going to adjust these values here, which these, underneath the button, these 4 values here change its normal color when it's highlighted, when it's pressed, and when it's disabled. So let me just adjust these so that they look a little bit nicer. Rampant asks, by the way, how about adding small Uix canvases with buttons as call buttons for the elevator? Could theoretically also have floor number indicators on them using digital numbers fonts. Yes, absolutely. You can use a Uix canvas to control an elevator, or even have a vertical bar to show you where the elevator is located. We can absolutely do that. Which we might have to overhaul our elevator at some point. But anyways, we have a button, but we don't know what it does. It's completely blank. So let's go ahead and give it some text. Let's call this button text. And just like before, we're going to add a UIX graphics text. I'm going to make it white. And I'm going to call it, let's see, what do we want to call it? Toggle. Oops, if I can type, that is. Toggle back pane, because what we're going to toggle with this is that pesky pane behind us that we tend to misclick every now and then that's black, that's currently down. So I'll center that and put it there. Great. We have a button that does absolutely nothing. How do we toggle something with it? Well, to have a button toggle something, in this case, we want to use a checkbox, which is on or off. So we can go under UIX, Interaction, Checkbox. This gives us a checkbox. If I click the button, it... Ooh. Well, oh, I put that on the text. Apologies. Let's go back to the button. So this actually explains something interesting. The components that you add to make like a checkbox for the button have to be in the same slot as the button in most cases. We can go to UIX, Interaction, Checkbox. Now that it's here with the button, it will hook in with it, and when I press the button, it toggles the checkbox. Now I'm going to head over to our panel, select it, and I believe it's just this here, isn't it? Yes, it is the state on the Boolean value driver. And since we don't want to be pressing this thing while we're doing this, we can get rid of our touch button. And this as well. And we can actually move this over to our panel, but we'll do that in just a moment. So we have our state here. This is what we want to toggle. I'm going to grab that and put that in the target state for the checkbox. Either of these will work, and the difference between target state and check visual on a checkbox is if you have something referenced in target state, then this checkbox here will not toggle. However, check visual will keep that from toggling, or it will continue toggling if check visual is shown. It's preference with how you want to use that. But now, if I click this button, it goes up and down. Great. So now we don't have to worry about accidentally clicking the thing. Alright. So, Aegis, so that I'm not talking my head off, we have a button audio clip player here, and we want to move it over to this button. How do you do that? You're muted.
Hello? Okay.
Hello?
So, button audio clip player. It's self-explanatory. In order to find this component, so find the button you want to look for it, and as Ravi said, specify the actual slot that the button is on in order for this to work. So I'm going to go to Attach Component, and this is under Common UI as well, and under Button Interactions. Near the top, you'll see Button Audio Clip Player. Now, this is just like Random Audio Clip Player or Child Parent Audio Clip Player. You can add clips to different actions. You can even add a action when you hover over a audio or a button to play an audio file, and you can choose a object that the audio clip is going to parent under. It essentially makes a play one shot every time you use this. So you can specify a slot that it's going to play under, which in this case I'm going to put it under the button. And I could bring in a audio clip. Let's see here.
We could also use the one we have in that case.
Is there? Okay, that's
We
good.
do have a clip here.
Yeah, static audio clip. You can drag that under pressed.
Oh, it's itty bitty. Let's set it to not parent. There.
Okay. Yeah, with audio clips or audio sources, it scales to the object it's under. So if you have something technically very small, it'll have like a smaller radius of like well, you listen to it, so you have to physically scale the object. So in that case, having probably a slot somewhere that is just for audio effects would probably be good. Like just an empty object somewhere under the hierarchy to the proper scale you want it to be would honestly fix that kind of problem.
And
I have been
that's
doing
actually-
that with other effects as well.
It's actually quite a good idea, and I think we should implement that here. So what he's talking about is we have our empty object, which I'm going to rename this so that it's a bit more nice, to canvas. However, you'll notice its scale is itty bitty. So I'm going to give this, using this up arrow, I'm going to give this canvas a parent. You'll notice now the canvas is scaled large, but the parent is itty bitty. We can just fix that by grabbing our small scale, applying it to the canvas like so, but it's itty bitty. So we need to set the parent to normal. Now our canvas parent, which I'm going to rename to control panel, is now a scale of 1, but our canvas is the itty bitty thing. Now under our control panel, I'm going to add another slot and call it sound, I don't know, root.
Effects, or that works too.
And I'm going to take this slot and go down to our button and place it under the parent under. Now if we click it, all of the sounds that it makes, parent underneath the sound root. Good for organization. And it works exactly as it used to. Great. So we now have a functional toggle for that back panel, and it looks like we have enough time. We can make the next toggle that I had planned for this. We can close this. That being a toggle lock for these doors. Say you want to lock them open or lock them closed and you don't want people messing with these so much for whatever reason, then we can create a toggle for that. To do this, I'm going to take the button that we already have and duplicate it. And you'll notice, since these buttons are under a vertical layout, they're being aligned vertically. And you can see that there is space between them because on the vertical layout, we've said, hey, let's put 10 pixels of spacing between them. Great, nice and pretty. Okay. On this button, I'm going to go to its text and change it to toggle door lock. Now, say you look at this button, you don't know whether the doors are locked or unlocked without going over there and grabbing them and seeing for yourself. So, to do this, we can give ourselves a little bit of a visual indicator with this button, using a couple of components to tell whether the doors are locked or not. Now, I'd want this button to be silent, so we will get rid of this audio clip player on it. And we do still need our checkbox, but we're going to use it in a slightly different way. So, I'm going to do what I like to do with checkboxes, and because with check visual you can drive one value, but in this case we want to drive 3, which is the indicator for the button itself and the state of the 2 doors. So, how do you get one value into multiple values? Well, you can use a component under Relations, Value Multidriver. In this case, we want the bool type. Now I can take this value of the value multi-driver and place it under not target state, but check visual. And I tend to do this because this gives me this value and that value so that I can still manually check this thing if I want. Anyhow, we're going to be driving three things. The first of which will actually be another component on here. We're going to add a transform drivers Boolean value driver of type color, because we want to swap the button between two different colors based on the state. So I'm going to make the false value red, the true value green. Although I'm going to make it completely red and not completely green, because that's a little bit tough on the eyes. I'm going to take this Boolean value driver state and plug it into the value multi-driver. And I'm going to take the base color of our button here, and I'm going to place that into the Boolean value driver's target field. Now, depending on the state of the checkbox, it's controlling whether the button is red or green. Great. So, we want it so that when the button is green, the doors are unlocked. If the button is red, the door is locked. Conveniently for this, Yes, I'm being told by Wraith that I could have used another value option description driver component. However, I think that is a component I want to save for another time, but that is available just for folks who want to know where it is. It is available under Common UI, Drivers, Value Option Description Driver. However, now we want to control the state of the doors, so I'm going to select one, open it, and go to the door. And on these doors, we have a joint component, which is something we set up way long ago. I think it was our second workshop stream. The joint has an enabled state. If it's enabled, I can grab the door and move it. If it's not, oops. If it's not, I can't. I think I just disabled the mesh collider. Let's fix that. Okay. So we have our Boolean value. I'm going to take this and place it here under the value multi-driver, and I'm going to do the same thing for our other door, which is opening it, going to its root, finding the joint component, taking its enabled, and placing it in the value multi-driver. Now, when our button is green, we can move the doors. We can close them, we can do whatever we want. However, if we click the button, oops, we can't grab the doors. They are essentially locked. And you can lock them in any position because we're not setting the position or the rotation of the doors. We are just locking it. So we can lock them open. Well, if they would decide to stay open, there we go. And lock. And now they're open and can't be closed. Great, we can let visitors in permanently now. Yay. Okay. Now one last thing I'm going to do for this control panel is we don't want it floating in the middle of the room and we can't grab it. So I'm going to attach a transform interaction grabbable. And I want this to be scalable too. So that we can move it around, scale it, place it where we want. Which I think a good place for this would be behind the desk. But before we go and place it, this is the basics of what I wanted to cover today, which we indeed covered canvases, rect transforms, text, buttons, layouts, etc. Aegis, do you think there's anything here that you think the chat should know more about?
Did we show them night slicing, or you think that's still pretty early for that?
It's a bit early for 9 slicing, I think, but that will be part 2.
Yeah.
We have also shown how you can have a button make a sound when you press it.
Mm-hmm.
Does chat have any questions for us on Uix? Are you confused, confounded, you okay? Does it make sense?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of... Well, GUI Dragon has a recommendation for like how would a horizontal layout go.
So a horizontal layout is exactly the same as a vertical layout, just instead of elements being vertically aligned, they're horizontally aligned. I can demonstrate that real quick. If we go to our vertical layout here, and we delete it, I can go to our... We can add a... we can go to our component adder here, layout, and add a horizontal layout instead. You'll notice now these buttons are, well, horizontally aligned, which doesn't look bad. And just like the vertical layout, we can give it some spacing, like so. However, you will notice that they are very large, and we do indeed have more horizontal space than vertical space, but in this case, I think a vertical layout would suffice. But vertical and horizontal layouts behave exactly the same way. Another use for vertical or horizontal layouts is if you just have one item underneath it, you can use a horizontal or vertical layout to just give the item some padding so that it's inset and you don't have to do any kind of rigmarole with the rect transform. So I'm going to return this to a vertical layout now. Layout, vertical layout. Our settings were all 10. I want 10 pixel border and 10 pixels of spacing. And we have to uncheck force expand height so that they use their height. You'll notice they're in the middle, so we have to set the vertical line to top. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? Oh, the panel's down. Let's turn it up. Native triggers. We have a question from Trevor however you say that, apologies. Can you make the panel only visible by certain users, i.e. an admin button only the world owner can toggle? Absolutely. That would have to be done with logics, but you can control the visibility of an item just by going to its root, in this case our button, and turning active off. Now it's not visible. However, if you had, say, well, actually, we can demonstrate this here. So if you want an item to be visible to a specific user, we can add a transform drivers value user override of type bool. And if you're not familiar with this component, what this does is this allows you to control the value of something which can differ from user to user. So in this case, I want our default value of this thing to be off. And I'm going to keep persistent overrides checked, which what that means is even if the item is saved and loaded, or the world is saved and loaded, these overrides in here will persist. What we want to change is this active state up here. I will take it and place it in the target. You'll notice the button is gone. That's because, well, the default value is false. Aegis, if you wouldn't mind pressing the checkbox on active. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that set the default state. Okay. Oh, apologies. So, the reason this checked for everyone is because we don't have create overwrite on write checked. If I check that and uncheck the default so that it's off, now Aegis, if you go and check it.
And now I see it.
Aegis sees it, but I don't, and neither does Stream, because Aegis is the only one with this value set to true. So this is how you can have, say, in this case, a specific user who can see only specific buttons. You can use this as an administrative panel in a world, and etc.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think we want this button to be visible to everyone, so I'm going to delete our little component. Great. Let's see, do we have any other questions? A button whose sole purpose is to disable itself. Yes, you can do that. Self-disabling button. Does anyone else have any other questions about this panel? Any UIX questions whatsoever? Actually, I just remembered. There is one thing that I said I was going to cover that I'd completely forgot to cover. Is what do these things in the rect transform do? We have anchor min and max and offset min and max. If you've ever looked at the rect transform, be like, that's a bunch of numbers I do not understand. What these do is these specifically control where an item is on its container. In this case, it would control where's the text in relation to the whole button. And specifically how this works is if I set anchor minimum, let's see, x to 0.5, what this means is the left bound of the text, instead of being all the way at the left, it's now halfway to the right or in the middle. So the text will only exist on this side, even if there's more space to the left, because you said, hey, only take up that right half, because you said, okay, the left bound is now halfway to the right. I can do the same thing by setting the maximum to, say, 0.5. Now it only exists on the left, because the maximum is on the right, and we squished it over to the left. You'll notice that anchor minimum and maximum is a value between 0 and 1. That's because it's relative to the total scale of the button, 0 being on the left and I think on the bottom, and 1 being on the top and on the right. Contrary to this, though, offset minimum and maximum are not based on relative scale, but they're based in pixels. So you can say, okay, I want the text to only exist, to not take up the bottom 32 pixels of this, so I can enter in 32 on the offset mem, and you see, whoop, it moves up 32 pixels. So regardless of the height of its container, in this case the button, that piece of text will always be moved up 32 pixels. Or, well, take up that space above it. You can also enter in negative values and get some weird things, like you can set the anchor minimum to -1. Now it goes off the page. It has no bounds. But that is a rect transform. And if you're curious about pivot, pivot is currently not used in UIX items. However, it exists for when we can, say, move an item around in an area. Let's see. We have a question from Kuromai. It asks, is it doable with UIX to make a panel where people can set themselves to be white or blacklisted for stream chat interactions? I believe so. Yes. Basically, what you can do is you can have it so that when you click on a button, it hooks in with a value user override, and you can check it or uncheck it if you want to have stream interactions apply to you or not. That'd be kind of useful, actually. Okay. Any other questions, or are we good, chat? Also, our music appears to have stopped. Oh no. Oh, and there it is. Neos. Yes, I agree. Neos. Oh! I just looked on here, and I totally forgot to do what I said you should probably do for text on these pieces of text here, and that is turn on the horizontal and vertical auto size. It doesn't change anything in this case, but I tend to be in a good habit. Can we add a button to Aegis with UIX? I mean, technically yes. You just need a small canvas with a button on it, and then you attach it, say, on his hand, and you'd have a button. You can attach a canvas panel like this to anything. For all intents and purposes, it's just another slot, albeit with a canvas component. A canvas name tag. I have yet to see that. You know, one thing we can do, since we don't have very many items here yet, this will actually demonstrate how the vertical layout these buttons only take up space that they need to, is if I set the height of this to, say, 512. It's smaller, true, and the area beneath these buttons are smaller too because, well, these buttons only take up a set amount of height. So even if we get lots of items, these buttons will always be that size. Great. Now, since we don't seem to have any more questions, I think a good place for this panel would be behind the desk. So, let's put our panel, I don't know, here-ish. And I'm going to disable its grabbable. On the control panel, turn off the grabbable. I'm going to keep the component because we might need to move it at a later date. And now we have a very basic little world control panel. And this is a good start to UIX, I think. There's a lot more to UIX, however. But this is, of course, just part one for those who want to get started. And we still have a little bit of time here, so if you have some questions about UIX or anything UI related, or about what we're going to cover next, now is a good time to ask those questions.
Oh, definitely.
UIX Part 2, Quantum Physics.
Oh, no.
No. Maybe.
Oh, Fruix is still pounding that keyboard. Fruix!
We're missing our
stop
Fruix
using your
head.
Keyboard.
What?
Whoa.
What?
Stop abusing your
See,
poor
look.
keyboard.
Now we can't, close this thing randomly. It's great.
What do I do?
You're smashing your keyboard.
No. It's typing.
Whoa.
But yeah, that is quite awesome. Gun Griffin says hi, Fruix.
Hello.
Are radio
Hi,
buttons easy
Fruix.
to implement?
Yes. I think we have components for radio button.
We'll go over that next.
Yes, that's actually a point I completely forgot about is radio buttons. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'll go over on next week's stream.
Hmm.
And Fergus is back.
Yep, exactly where he came from.
Hello.
We are actually going to post, by the way, there is a little video clip. I'm actually going to play it on the stream in a moment for you guys to see, which is a little behind the scenes look at what happened when we were doing microphone testing earlier today. Because I always do a bit of audio testing beforehand, and there's a little part in that where Fruix literally lands straight back where he was. So
Right over there.
that was rather amusing. So just as we end off, we are going to play. I'm going to play that for you guys to see.
Boy.
Hello.
Hello.
Seeker says, wonder what crazy stuff will be in part 2. Well, I think some good things to go over would be radio buttons, sliders, there's lots of different kinds of interaction that you can do with UIX, and I believe we could call next stream UIX interaction, because it will cover a lot of those things.
Yes.
And continue building our little control
This
panel
is Fruix's home. He lives here now.
Hello.
in the corner. Aw.
I still remember that little clip from when we did the Minecraft thing and he was under the stairs and he's like, hello, hello, this is my new home, I live here now.
Hello.
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 It's just so cute and silly.
Oh.
As Fruix is.
Oh yeah, we all know that Fruix is silly and cute, he always will be.
And he's got rainbow feathers now.
Yes.
He's a rave party.
One thing that I think I should mention here too, like usual, after the stream here, the world will be open for about an hour, so if you have any UIX questions or very specific UIX questions, you can come in and we can help you out. And with anything in general, for that matter.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that the video?
Yes, and
Oh. It's...
There we go, that'll do.
There's a wall between me and Wraith now.
Where are we? Where is it? There it is.
Oh, we do have a question. Where am I again? What are the default types of interactive elements, like radio button, check marks, progress bars, and so on? So, it's not necessarily that there are a bunch of these default elements. You can set up, say, there's buttons, checkboxes, expanders, sliders, scroll rects, and with these base components, it provides the functionality so that you can make the say, a slider look any way you want, within reason. Which we will go over the interaction category for the components to next Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
There we go.
Ben Griffin asks a not UIX related question. However, it's one I think is nice to answer. They say, not really UIX related, but can you use two invisible objects to allow you to grab an object with both hands, i.e. a steering wheel? And yes, absolutely.
I don't see why.
That will actually, that will actually probably make controlling the steering wheel in that example be a bit nicer to use.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna pause the music
All right.
and let's. Wow, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's see. So I need to first audio from camera viewpoint users. 1, 2, 3. This was from our audio
Next
test.
will be joining us.
I don't know if Next will be joining us.
Okay. Volume up.
Aegis.
Mm.
Aegis is made of egg.
What?
He is Egg Wolf now. Are you Egg Wolf?
Mike?
Okay.
Egg.
There we
I
go.
mean, that's what, what? Okay, is that it?
Floats a gay.
Close, okay.
Is that it? What?
Yeah.
What? What?
What?
What?
What?
What do you want me to do?
I don't know!
Ah!
You don't know.
You're Hitar.
He's a guitar.
I'm
Bow, 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 bow.
Evil year. Evil year.
What?
Key.
Uix surf.
Ah!
I was like, I don't know if it wants something.
I don't know.
Evil year.
Okay.
La 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 la.
What? Why is my name tag the only one showing up in the camera preview for me? That's
Because
weird.
you don't have the you have the stupid. You don't have the name tag driver on or something. I don't know.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I do use loud Well,
Oh,
no, noises. no, then! I use a lot of loud noises when I'm mic testing. There, it's gone.
Nom.
Turkey.
I'd be a turkey if I shaved my head.
Chop your
Shaved
ears off.
Verb. No.
That one.
Don't hurt the
Yeah,
bird.
this has a few stutters in it, but yeah, welcome to behind the workshop scenes. Before we get
How
started,
occasionally, when you get all loud, your microphone just makes it so incredibly quiet.
I know
Just
it's
fades out.
it's that it's awesome. It's the normalization. It's great.
We need a blooper reel.
Yes. Anyway, microphone check 1 2, audio check 1 2. Yep, everything seems to be
Testing,
okay.
testing. Are we in broadcast view?
You're in
Or-
shout.
Oh, okay.
Testicles 1 2 testicles.
Hmm.
Wow, I say testicles and Fruits comes over.
I still just like fruits like that. It's perfect.
How's he returned back to exactly the same fucking spot? In exactly the same position. What the fuck?
And he just goes, blah.
What?
Blah.
He just,
Wow.
I don't even know.
I like how occasionally he's just side-eyeing the camera.
Yeah. So we're doing UIX shit then.
We're starting down that path.
I fucking hate UIX.
That's why I'm doing.
That's why I get you to
fun.
do
I know
it.
what you're doing it.
Wow.
Well,
It's just-
we know you love UIX. You're a UIX wizard. I mean,
Yeah, I learned
Just
Pivot.
Christmas.
Gizmos for UIX.
Gizmos for UIX. No.
Although that would be kind of cool.
Let's just make a UIX version and excellent.
What?
I don't know.
Oh.
Just make an excellent soundboard.
Okay. I
I'm
have
sure
a lot
we
of the
can-
sounds.
I'm sure we can capture enough sound clips from him. I was going to say we've got more than enough.
redundant.
Yeah, we're going to make
Soundboard
Next redundant. Sorry,
Automated
Next. We love you
Next.
really. But yeah, what
Need
it is,
Fruit's head.
when I do audio testing, I record like 5 minutes of audio clips, and then I watch over it just to make sure that everything's fine. And as I say, it does happen to be saved. So that's the shenanigans that happens before workshops.
As I said, we need a blooper reel.
Yes. Oh
Oh,
god.
the loop.
But yeah, it was really weird because, as I say, Fruix just went back to that position in exactly the same head position and everything.
Oh,
Just need a permanent Fruit's head over there now.
Yeah. But as I say, we will be back with the workshop next week, same time as usual, which is 10 UTC. Because we keep this stream at the same time, which is, as I say, it's 2200 UTC, 2300 Europe, UK, midnight in Europe, whatever time it is where the chicken comes from,
5 p.m.
5 p.m. So yeah.
And as always, this place will be open to join after we're done.
A permanent Fruix head that occasionally starts jabbering like an angry keyboard. Yes!
oh.
Fruix, you are now an angry keyboard.
Oh.
But yeah, thanks all for watching. We're going to head off now. So as I say, the world will be open for an hour afterwards. You can come over, talk to us. Don't talk to me about UIX. If you talk to me about UIX, you're not going to get anything out of me. Talk to Ryuvi.
Yes.
Hey, Fruix, you got some love.
Oh.
Kurumel says, love you, Fruix. And Gun Griffin
Aw.
says, Cherry MX, yellow keys.
Oh. I got red.
He's got reds. That's why he's loud.
Oh, I do not want.
Do you know
Don't
what,
click.
right? How loud he is now, I dread to think what he's like with a set of blues.
I just.
That'd just be like, bang, bang, bang!
And
Poor Fruits.
Arms.
Yeah, it will just be frustrated noises if people ask me about UIX, yeah. Where is it? There it is.
Music.
Music again. But yeah, we're gonna head off now, so we'll see you next week, and goodbye!
Bye.